Hey, it's Dave Douglas for the Greenleaf Music Podcast, A Noise from the Deep. That's the music of Angela Morris, composer, saxophonist, violinist. She teamed up with Anna Weber, who I spoke with on this podcast about a year ago, to form the Weber-Morris Big Band. Their record is coming out on Greenleaf Music in April 2020. We'll hear more music from the new album and from lots of other collaborations Angela has been involved with. It's great music. You can support this show by visiting greenleafmusic.com and subscribing. It's really crucial in building a sustainable home for creative music and the arts. I hope you'll join us. You can also email me directly at podcast@greenleafmusic.com about these monthly interviews. I learn a lot doing them, and I hope you enjoy listening. Thanks. Here's Angela Morris. Angela, thanks for joining me.
So glad to be here.
It's great to be able to talk to you about this music. So much color, timbre, especially in that piece.
Yeah.
Is that how you think about it?
I do think about timbre a lot. I think texture and timbre are in the front of my mind, composing in general.
You mean like not just for the big band, but everything that you write?
Yeah. I think that's an element that, especially in recorded music, is so primary to the way we experience music. And growing up playing acoustic music, classical music, I think the way it's thought about is often pretty secondary, or it's assumed like, oh, the timbre means there's a trumpet or there's a violin, but not so much the quality of the sound that you're getting from the trumpet and the violin, or
the big band in this case.
Or the big band, yeah, or like a digital instrument, or how the production affects that. And that, I mean, recorded music has influenced how we all hear music of all kinds so much that becomes a compositional element, I think.
How do you think about that? Let's leave it specifically about the big band for the moment. When you're writing, would you say that's the first element that you're thinking about when you begin a new piece? It's probably always different, but
yeah, it's always different.
What I mean.
I definitely consider that when I'm orchestrating things, like what combinations of instruments, how is that going to sound, how can you use the combinations in an expected way or an unexpected way. I mean, one thing I've discovered is, surprise, it sounds really good to have all the saxophones play something together, or all the trumpets. I mean, just like really basic stuff.
In unison.
Yeah, or as a section, instead of always having these distinct, when you mix all the combinations all the time, you actually can get a homogeneity that is not what is intended,
That is the opposite of what you were going for.
Yeah, you're going for something really distinctive, and you think, okay, I'll combine this muted trumpet with this thing, and in the end, it doesn't really have an identity.
Right.
But that can be an advantage if you want that, or it can be...
I'm going to go close the door
Mabel.
on the barking dog. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah, so I do think about texture and timbre. A lot of times with pieces, I have some kind of non-musical idea that's shaping what I'm composing, like a form idea. I mean, not that form is non-musical, but it could be a form that's coming from a poem, or kind of like a concept, like this is going to start very cohesive and get more and more uncohesive as the piece goes on, or things like that, that kind of give a shape So for choral, the first idea was that I wanted to write kind of a brass chorale sounding thing. And so the name choral was just a play off that. And then once I heard the piece, it sounded so watery, and everyone, different players in the band said, "Oh, this is the part where there are fish doing that." I mean, it's just so evocative.
Yeah.
Once you have a single word that just like colors how.
And then you're like, "Oh, if you say so."
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's what I meant all
Totally,
along from the beginning. But the idea is to have the rich harmony that you get in a chorale and the kind of voice leading, but in a way where the harmonies would be a lot more unexpected and the interaction would be, I don't know, cool.
Yeah, but it's also, I'm not, of course, I'm not disagreeing with anything that you're saying, but it's, I think something about this piece is also the way that it develops in time.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't have said chorale. Like that connection didn't occur to me because of the way the sections work and the way you're working with color.
Right. It's almost
timbre,
like...
And then the way it develops.
A complete slow motion. It's like everyone is playing their part of a chorale in slow motion in a vacuum, and then you layer it all on top of each other, at least in the intro and outro sections.
Right, and then, starts very majory, like a good coral reef would, and then sort of goes unexpected places.
Yeah. Yeah, and the idea of having like a beat drop at a certain point in the development, but having that also be really slow in coming together, kind of different instruments have different sections of something that could become a rhythm, and then eventually they coalesce into something, and the idea is the development sneaks up on you so that you almost, when you arrive at that section, like around the 8-minute mark or whatever it is, you it's so natural that you're there. It's as if you go on a walk and you see one thing and then another thing. The connection, what am I trying to say? Like the transitions are so gradual that you almost don't notice them happening.
And that was intentional, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
To go back to timbre, you've been studying music a long time, and when I first met you all those years ago, you were a student at Humber.
13 years ago.
I guess something like that.
Yeah.
But you've had a lot of composition teachers, and so just that detailed work on how to treat timbre. Especially in this podcast, we're only able to play maybe 3-4 minute excerpt of the piece, but you really get the sense of detail, of richness, almost like the way you would look at an oil painter mixing colors and brush strokes and patterns.
Nice. I'm glad you have that experience of it.
Well, it just came to me as I was trying to describe what I'm hearing. And I guess what I'm asking is, is that just a painstaking hours and hours, or is that something that, is part of your process and comes naturally for you?
It depends on the piece, and it depends on the players. I mean, that's the amazing thing working with improvisers, especially when you have kind of some shared touchstones in terms of your practice and the things you listen to, and you can get a lot of richness and detail without always writing it all in painstaking detail. Choral is a funny instance of that, where I thought I was going to write a 3-minute long piece, and it quickly became clear that I'd written a 10-minute long piece.
Mission creep.
But it wasn't nearly, like, the time it took me to write it was so much less than, say, Both Are True, another track on this album, because the density of notated activity in each minute of playing time is way different. It's a lot more, the players have a lot more choice about when to do the particular things they're doing, and then as a conductor, I'm just managing the flow of events from one thing to the next. for choral. Whereas in Both Are True, there's a lot of notes, and each moment
Right.
you're thinking, oh, okay, how does this line interact with that one, and how do we harmonize this, and what's in the foreground, what's in the background.
Right. So the relative amount of freedom changes the amount of that painstaking time and work. And so the flow of choral is much more, there's choices that the players make, and then you're standing in front determining the pace at which things develop.
Yeah, and I'm really happy with how that went, because something I've been trying to do in writing for improvisers for a long time is to give people choices that are real choices where they can actually affect the direction that the music goes in. But where it's really a piece, it's the same piece every time, even though within that piece you have a lot of choices.
Yeah.
But it still sounds clear, like, oh yeah, that's that piece. So I'm really happy that I could realize that with the big band, because that's, the more people there are, the more challenging that becomes.
Absolutely. That's an amazing point. I want to listen to a little of Both Are True, but you mentioned being the conductor and sort of guiding the group through the process of the piece, but it's also, you're an instrumentalist. So in terms of your relationship to your instrument, both in what you write and in being among a group of 17 musicians and sort of deciding how things should play out, how much do you think about that?
It influences what I write for sure, and knowing what sounds I can get out of a saxophone helps me decide what's reasonable to ask other people to do, and being in situations, improvising, just lots of improvising situations with musicians who have really personal vocabularies on their instrument. A lot of people are in the band and I know they're playing really well, so that becomes like a color on my palette, if you will, if I'm an oil painter.
Sorry.
It's easy.
We're not going to torture this metaphor.
I don't even have to.
Well, I mean, but also that's a blessing to really know the musicians, that many musicians that well, and it's part of the testament to the community that you're in.
Absolutely, and then being able to share that with other communities is a really cool element of writing music, because like Ingrid Laubrock did something with some musicians in Argentina and brought a piece, she brought choral to that band and they performed it there, and that caused me to add a lot of performance notes and go through the score and really make it possible for other people to realize it when I'm not there,
right,
and to kind of protect the music in that way. But it's also giving that vocabulary that is developed in our community to another, like sharing that with another community of musicians, and that's really cool and fun.
That is great. And Both Are True is the title track of your new recording that is on Greenleaf Music.
Woohoo!
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
very happy. And you're playing at Jazz Gallery on April 4th.
You got it.
With this very ensemble. So let's just hear a little bit of this and then we'll talk about it.
when I wrote this, I imagined what it would be like playing it with Anna, but as it turns out, I have to conduct it. And so I'm really happy that Adam Schneit is in the band, and he's doing a great job playing.
So you
that
conducted,
tenor part. Yeah.
and Anna and
Adam play.
The duo.
Yeah, and the big solo on this, the first solo Anna has, we made it a solo, but it has an option in the score to be a tenor battle, as is classic element of the big band
You're really
repertoire.
Reaching back to the masters.
So maybe one day Anna and I will do it as a tenor battle.
Well, you recorded this all at a performance at Roulette, and it came out so well.
It was such
Fantastic.
a great night.
Yeah. It must be really fun when the band comes together and plays all these tunes.
It is. It's an amazing feeling, and it's amazing conducting this group, because I've never been surfing, but I kind of imagine that it's a bit like surfing, because you're aware of the wave and you're manipulating it, but really you're also riding it at the same time. There's a funny like back and forth. I feel like I'm visually communicating what the rhythm section is doing to the front of the band, and it's just this dance where when it's really going, it feels like, I don't know, it's ecstatic. It feels amazing.
Wow. But you have to hope that you're not going faster or slower than the wave. Because then things get dodgy.
Maybe the metaphor is not perfect.
No,
but,
I'll take it. I like it. I like it. I'll work on that. Something that I thought was really interesting when I first heard the music and was talking to you guys is just 10 minutes seems to be like a unit of time that you work in a lot.
It does seem like that, doesn't it?
It's just unusual. That's all. Maybe it's not unusual, but it struck me as, wow, okay, a 10-minute long piece.
We have some 10-minute long pieces, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, I tried to write a 3-minute long piece, and it turned out to be a 10-minute long piece, so something
about that length of time feels like completion.
Yeah, it is a goal of mine to write some shorter pieces for the big band this year, to have some variety. And also, like you're saying, it seems to be a thing I'm doing. So maybe I can learn something about my process and what you can do, what can be a complete bite of something in 3 minutes.
Fair
for
enough,
the
that
big
makes
band.
sense. But I was coming at it from the other direction, assuming that it was intentional.
Oh. Well, I don't know.
Maybe it is in some sense, or something embedded.
Yeah, and I think also I have been in contexts where the maximum amount of music you're allowed to have is 10 minutes. And so
maybe it came from that.
It might have come
discipline.
from that. Yeah.
I was wondering if it was something about, your process of unfolding the ideas, that it takes 10 minutes for that to happen.
It seems like it does, because it keeps happening that way.
Well, don't stop.
But yeah, preparing for this podcast, I was looking at things that I've done in the last couple of years, and there are an awful lot of things that are 10 minutes and longer.
You sent me some very long pieces, and then you said, well, the piece unfolds in 10-minute increments. We'll hear some of that as we're going on. But I just thought, what you just said, you've been in a lot of situations where you had to write pieces. The limitation was 10 minutes. And so you mentioned briefly the BMI workshop. You were in that. And I know you've been working with Jim McNeely.
That was in the BMI workshop.
And also Darcy James Argue.
Yep.
You came to Banff a few times when I was there.
I met Darcy in Banff. Yeah, went the second time I was there, I think, with you, and studied with him doing my master's degree here in New York. So
was that at Queens College?
Mm-hmm. CUNY, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, that was great, and a bit onwards from that, and had the chance to be a production assistant on his Real Enemies recording. So that was also a window into how you could record a big band, which is very different than the way we ended up going. Like you said, we had a live recording. But I would love to do something like that should the conditions present themselves in the future.
Yeah, it's hard. What studio did he do that at?
At MSR.
MSR,
which is
so
no
that
more.
Worked well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of those big studios are gone.
Yeah.
I was going to ask not only big band, well, let's start with big band, influences maybe beyond people that you've worked with directly, but things that you listen to that have inspired you.
I think in terms of timbre, which is something that we were talking about, the thing that's inspired me the most is improvisers that I play with and the timbres they have. Like Booker Stardrum is a drummer who I play with, and he has a really personal set of percussion sounds that he's developed. And so that's an example. Or like Kenny Warren, who's in the band, really great improviser,
trumpet player, yeah.
Great trumpet player. I mean, Anna, all these people and other people that I've played with in other bands, like playing with Jason Ajemian in that band and all these things. When I conceptualize a sound or like a zone, a sonic zone I want to be in, I really think about like, I imagine these people into it, and that kind of shapes my
But
picture.
always people in your life, people around you that you play with.
It has been that way a lot. And Ellen O'Mara, who's a friend that passed away last year, her harmonic concept, I mean, in the time that I played with her, it's so unique and so impossible to understand. I don't think anyone understands what she was thinking. Even like her partner of a lot of years would ask her, like, he played piano too, like, what are you thinking about? And no one really knew, but just my own memory of what that sound is. Influences me a lot. And I think like all the music I've ever listened to, which ranges from like, I listen to a lot of your records. I listen to
It's not important.
it is important. Like in high school, I listened to a lot of Riot Girl, like Bikini Kill and stuff like that, and also classical music. I mean, I grew up playing violin. I don't know. This is a random assortment. I'm always bad at pulling up lists of things I listen to.
I don't blame you. The water is wide. But since I had mentioned big band, I thought you would say Gil Evans or Billy Strayhorn or even earlier, Fletcher Henderson.
Yeah.
But the way that the band that you and Anna Weber lead is kind of anomalous, sort of its own sound. Doesn't seem to come from the world of Thad Jones.
No, not directly. I mean, I've studied that. We both studied that, and in terms of like, here's a super sax
The
voicing,
technique
and this is a drop two.
masters.
All the sort of things you learn in jazz arranging that come from that lineage. But I've listened to a lot of other kinds of music, and I think those influence me more in terms of the things I like.
Would you say maybe like post-war contemporary classical composers?
like Messiaen, Arvo Pärt, and also like Julius Hemphill I really love. I mean, a lot of kind of like Eric Dolphy. I listen to a lot of Eric, like Monk, Somebody wrote about this and said that they heard Mingus in there somewhere, and I was like, okay, yeah, I like Mingus. I mean, I like lots of stuff. It's hard I think it's always just like hard to say what influences.
Of course.
Me.
And I didn't mean to
Wayne Shorter.
ask.
Lots of Wayne Shorter.
Right.
Love Wayne Shorter.
Can't go wrong.
But I've always, even like as a saxophone player, I always have heard like, oh, wow, have you studied that? Wow, I don't hear that in your playing at all. Like, you say you listened to this. Well, I don't hear that at all. It's like, well,
yeah,
that's okay.
I get that too.
I don't know. What are you supposed to say to that?
How dare you say that this record is dedicated to Mary Lou Williams? It has nothing to do with her work.
Right.
I think you just get up the next day and keep writing music.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you sent me a track of this group that I'd heard before, Rally Day. And the piece is called Smells Like Paint.
I wrote that in Banff, actually.
Did you? Right, because the vocalist Alex Samaras was there.
Alex Samaras, he wasn't in Banff when I was there. I'm not sure if he's been to the Banff workshop, actually.
I remember him from there.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Must have been a year that I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I knew him from Toronto. Great singer, amazing person.
And the bassist Scott Kohlberg. And you've had this band for a while.
Yeah, it's a dormant band at the moment, but that was a project that came out of an injury I had where I couldn't play for a while, and so I was sort of singing a lot to myself and writing in that way, writing in my head, kind of writing songs, and that became, and also drawing back on pieces I'd written that were instrumental pieces, which I'm not sure, Smells Like Paint might have been in that category.
Did you write the words too?
Yeah, I wrote the words, but the words were never performed. Take My Hand Off the Wheel is another Ralliday piece on the other album that I'd performed with my jazz quintet in Toronto without a vocalist, but it always had words. They were a secret. Only I knew that the pieces had words. And then once I got to know Alex and realized someone could really sing this stuff, I was excited to have some.
Wow. So is that coming from the classic joke about what paint smells like?
I don't know. What's the joke?
What's blue and smells like red paint?
Blue paint?
Blue paint.
No, that was from... I don't know if you remember the old bar at the Banff Center.
Yeah.
Pre-Mac Lab. It was called...
the pub.
The Pub.
There was some name for it. It's not Pooh's Pub. That was in Boston.
Anyway, I got there and there was another woman in the program who was talking about some guy talking to her that she didn't want to talk to, trying to pick her up in the bar, and how she felt painted into a corner, except for she was Quebecois. She said an expression in French, and she was like, wait, is that something you can say in English, But I was just thinking about that. So that was a quick Banff composition. It Smells Like Paint.
That sounds good, and you captured it. Let's hear a little bit of this. Excuse me, girl, I couldn't help but notice you make it hard to focus on drinking my 9th beer. Have a drink and tell me what your name is. You look like someone famous back in her younger years. How can I still get talked into a corner? Every time there's a bore who thinks he can tell me just what I need. Can't he tell that it smells like paint in this corner and I can't Ralliday.
Ralliday.
That's a really unique band. I wanted to ask you about this concert series you've been producing in Brooklyn called Brackish.
Yeah, Brackish.
And how long has that been happening?
More than 3 years now. And we do about one a month, like 10 a year.
And where is it? What's the venue?
It's at St. Lydia's Dinner Church, which is in Gowanus. It's like in between Park Slope and Carroll Gardens. And it's kind of a gallery type space, like it's a storefront church, not a big churchy church. So it's a really intimate place, and the idea is multidisciplinary, experimental, original music, dance-ish stuff. I mean, people can't do full-on dance productions. It's more like in the movement category, poetry, sometimes at the same time, sometimes, just beside one another. But it's a really great place for people to try out things that might be not fully finished, and it's always a really intimate, beautiful gathering. Some very weird and cool things have happened.
So you do it once a month, and there might be 2 or 3 different things on the bill?
Exactly.
And what night of the week is it generally?
It's always on a Thursday, usually the third Thursday, but it shifts around a little depending.
How would somebody find out about that?
Brackish Brooklyn on Instagram and Facebook, and there's a website. Brackish
Brooklyn. Okay. And you manage to keep doing that even though you're on the road and traveling and getting married and things like that.
Yeah. Well, for the past more than a year, Stevie May, she's has more of a dance background, performance art, and also a music background. She's been co-organizing it with me, and Jamie Branch just joined on organizing it as well. So we share the booking and hosting and schlepping and all the
working the door,
all those aspects of it, because
great.
Last year I was away as much as I was in town, so I missed quite a few of them.
You've been touring with a gentleman by the name of Helado Negro.
Yes. Yeah.
Whose music is quite different than most of the music you play.
It does seem that way, yeah.
What do you think of this name that they give to his music? Cosmic synth folk.
The NPR.
Is that NPR?
I think that's NPR,
okay.
Yeah.
But I've seen it quoted other places, so somebody likes it.
It has a nice ring to it.
And I think it describes the music somewhat.
Yeah. And I appreciate it because, strangely, because he sings in Spanish and English, the music can sometimes get pigeonholed in a certain genre it belongs like squarely in the indie pop world. That's the overarching musical zone. I hear it in the fact that the singing is in Spanish doesn't change like how the music sounds,
Right, but I think the thing that I notice, is having you play saxophone and violin gives it a really unique tone also, along with all the electronics and everything else that's happening. Not something you hear in indie pop music every day.
Not every day. Although I feel like saxophone's having a moment lately. Maybe it's ending now, but it's been having a moment.
I'm sure it'll be cyclical throughout the rest of time. Is there any brass in Helado Negro?
Not usually. Jamie Branch has played. We did a show at Bowery Ballroom, which was the Other Music Forever show.
Oh, I see.
When Other Music closed, they did a big concert. Matana played, and we did like a second line marching band funeral parade for Other Music that she led with a big giant foam cowboy hat on.
I'm sorry I missed that.
And then we, Helado Negro had a short set, and Jamie was playing. But
wow, that's so great. Do you improvise all your parts?
Sort of. Sometimes they start out improvised and then they become set. So we kind of improvise them until they are parts, and then we play them more or less the same way.
But the songs come to you fully formed?
Yeah, he's already written the songs, and then we're adding layers and textures and stuff. In the live show, I'm playing, a guitar solo from the record on saxophone, or a violin part that doesn't exist on the record. So there's sort of retooling of how the studio thing plays out live, to work within the instruments we have. And
that must be fun for the band.
It's fun,
because there's creativity involved, and I'm sure as you're on the road it changes and morphs.
Yeah, I mean the radio things we've done have been really fun, because that is always a different setup, a more acoustic setup, or adding musicians who are local, like the KEXP. Is it KEXP? I get all the radio station names confused, but this Helado Negro and the Smile Band, that live recording that came out, was from a a live session in LA at Village Studios, and we got to work with some musicians, some of whom were even on the record, but who weren't in the touring band, and then putting it together.
And is that like, have you played a Tiny Desk concert?
We have played a Tiny Desk concert.
So everybody can go look that up.
Yeah, that was sort of the first, my first public appearance in the internet of Helado Negro's internet presence, I guess.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I'd played some stuff with him before.
Cool.
I was going to say the first time I played with Roberto Helado Negro was a tour with, it was a combined tour with Jason Ajemian's band Folklords and Helado Negro. So it was basically like Jason's band playing as the band for Helado Negro. And we were kind of learning the songs on the fly each night of the tour. And it was very much the saxophone situation that you remarked on between me and Nathaniel, like on the Skelettes track, that kind of two saxophones being one texture instrument idea that happens a lot in Jason's music, and then that kind of became a thing in the Helado Negro set as well. And so that's a fun connection. There are a lot of like funny connections where it seems like such a different world musically, but then there are all these connections that you don't expect, people and places, and
Worlds collide.
Worlds collide.
Todo lo que me falta es tú. Todo lo que me falta es tú. Todo lo que me falta es tú. Que me falta es tú. Volví ayer, te encontré en pedazos. Comí tu ojo con mi párpado. Y me hablabas despacio. Y me decías que no me vayas, porque ahora sé todo lo que me falta es tú.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that strikes me too is the process for creating this. His process is in a certain respect really different. Like, he doesn't notate anything, but in another respect, it's really similar. He does a lot of work on his own, conceiving how, what the piece is, how it's going to sound, recording his parts, recording lots of digital stuff. And then he brings other people in, all kinds of different people to add more textures, timbres, make up their own little parts, and mixes those all into the whole. So it's a different angle to create, which ultimately I think has a similar...
It's a great process.
Similar process.
I mean, I've been in previous years involved in records that were made like that. I think it's really enjoyable. I think, most of the records I make these days, it's 1 or 2 days in the studio. Mm-hmm. And there's something about being in there for many days and layering and just trying new things and erasing old things and replacing things and having people come in and...
Yeah.
But it's...
And I mean, it's so easy to record stuff now.
I guess these days it's coming
place.
back because everyone's recording in their own home.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's got a home studio.
I mean, that Ralliday track was recorded in Nathaniel's apartment way back when, before we were married, before we were even dating.
Before you were Mrs. Morgan. You're not Mrs. Morgan.
This is still before I'm Mrs. Morgan, yeah.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Angela just got married quite recently.
3 weeks ago.
That is wonderful. TMT Trio.
Yeah.
With Anthony Taddeo and Kat Torin. This was the one we mentioned earlier where the full piece is 2 hours long, but it unfolds in 10-minute increments. So we'll play a little excerpt of that. But
you should play the whole 2 hours.
Play the whole 2 hours. Yeah. Anybody got anything else to do? Why does it unfold that way?
Anthony wrote the form for that piece, and it's a 2 hour long piece because we did a kind of an installation at the Akron Art Museum with Jerry Birchfield, who's a photographer, sculptor, and he had this installation called Asleep in the Dust, and we were invited to become part of the installation. So he kind of positioned us amongst this collection of this large sculptural object in the center, and some people sat and listened to the whole 2 hours, and other people walked in and out of the gallery throughout that time. But the 10-minute form is like recurring themes. So the first time they happen, they're improvised, but then whatever, like the first thing is event 1, the first 10 minutes, and then later event 1 will come back either in all 3 instruments in the trio or in just one person. And so it's like you remember what event 1 was like when you played it half an hour ago and kind of bring that concept back. And that's the whole form. So it's really totally improvised, but it has this loose structure that it hangs on. And it was a really meditative experience.
I was going to say, it sounds like very peaceful and meditative and self-reflective.
And incredible to be, I mean, I was facing this part of the sculpture, and the sculpture itself is like a collection in levels of all these smaller objects that are all processed. So he'll like make a photograph that involves plastering a piece of wood, and then that wood will become a sculptural object that becomes part of this larger, he has a really iterative process, which I think the form of the piece reflects that as well, in terms of coming back to a memory of a previous process, a previous event. But just gazing at the artwork for 2 hours in one spot and noticing things, you think you've seen it because you're standing there for an hour,
right.
But then noticing things emerging, like all these layers or the way this shape mirrors that shape. And so hopefully we captured that in the music as well. And I really liked that. That's a unique kind of collaboration because we didn't create the visual artwork, but we were part of the experience for people who were viewing it in the gallery, and then it became part of our process for the music. And so there's this great photo book that we put out with some of Jerry's photos and this double CD 2 hour extravaganza.
Where does one get that?
Bandcamp.
You gave me a copy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's beautral.
It's very beautiful.
Lots of
I'm
great
happy with it,
photographs.
yeah.
And Bandcamp.
Bandcamp.
Which Bandcamp?
tmt-trio.bandcamp.com.
Good. It's worth looking up. Let's hear a little bit of this piece called Asleep in the Dust. You're playing almost how many minutes consecutively?
Probably at least an hour in there somewhere.
Wow. So posture, neck strap.
Yeah.
Any problems arising?
No, I think
It's probably good for you.
Yeah, I actually think improvising is great. Like all the performance injury type of things I've had, I think come from carrying instruments and computers. I don't think and violin is violin's that's a nasty position to have your body in. Head turned, arms up. So I think I've got a legacy of violin stress, but I think actually saxophone's good for you.
Interesting. Do you have one of those neck straps that goes around your shoulders too?
A harness, yeah.
That's probably better. But still, it's kind of heavy.
It's heavy,
tenor
yeah.
sax.
No, harness
Trumpet
is good.
Mildly heavy, but not as heavy as a tenor sax.
I think neck straps are dumb. Harnesses are good.
Huh. I'll try to remember
spread
that.
out the weight. I finally found a good harness. It took a long time. Some of them are not that female friendly in their design.
Unfortunate that.
But there's good Zappatini. If you want to endorse me, Zappatini.
That's who makes the one that you
happily,
like.
yeah. Ingrid Laubrock uses it too.
Oh, cool. You've been playing with Jessica Pavone String Ensemble.
Yeah.
Violin.
Mm-hmm.
And in the interest of keeping this podcast to a certain length, we're not going to listen to that, but everybody can go hear that online. There's some great videos that go with the release. And so you're only playing violin in that project.
Yep. Yeah, and her music is very similar idea of creating a meditative space, almost like like a room that you walk into. It feels like more so than a piece that, like a story. You know, it's not like someone's telling you a story. This happened, then this happened, then this happened. It's more like here's a grove like of trees, or here's a
space to be in.
Yeah, here's a beautifully lit cathedral, or I don't know.
So it's a process of situating you and saying, now stay here.
Yeah, and it's all written out.
Here.
And there's improvising in the sense that you can choose when to change from one note to another, but she's told you what the notes are. So it's very much about getting the tuning in the quartet and the timbral spaces and the pacing of things. And I think she's written really beautiful music, and it's a pleasure to play it. It's really fun for me, having not played with other string players since I was in high school, to play with these great players and to play something that's all about just like getting into the sound. You know, it's not like I have to shred and practice a lot of violin, which, you know, time management wise is not always realistic for me. But it's just like long tones. If you can play, you know, if you're like practicing long tones, you're in the game.
Repetitive notes and long tones.
Yeah.
And it's very, very beautiful, and very...
And she does so much with that, you know. Not that that's the only thing that's happening, but there's a lot of that happening.
But it's, you know, another example of a system kind of facilitating a group of improvisers to be in this space.
Yeah.
Which seems like a theme for a lot of the things you're involved in.
Yeah, and I think playing in her group influenced choral for sure, because both she and Jason Adjemian have this idea of like breath pace, of playing, you know, each player moves from one thing to the next at the pace of their breath, which in a horn section becomes a very different thing. Like, I think that comes off in a really beautiful way in choral, because all those instruments need breath to actually play, whereas in playing violin, it's more of a concept than a reality. You don't actually have to exhale for the duration of your notes.
Right. But I think that building in, moving at the pace of breath, is different than the way you hear a lot of horn players play.
Yeah.
And endless stream of notes.
Right.
So to remind somebody, hey, take a breath and do it in a humane way.
The score also says this is not an endurance contest, because you might get... I remember that 50 trumpet piece. You remember when you did that? Is that Henry Brandt? Henry Brandt piece, Flight Over a Global Map at Font.
Yes, we did.
I was part of the rehearsal process for that, and if you get 50 trumpet players in a room, you might get some competitive behavior.
It's possible. Did you know that we ended up... This came up recently because Jane Ira Bloom was talking about Henry Brandt, who was a major influence for her, inspiration. Neely Bruce, the conductor who had worked closely with Brandt, told me, you got to get more than 50 because trumpet players are flaky. They won't show up. So we got 64 trumpet players, and that's how many there were in the performance that night. They all showed up. I didn't sense the competition thing, but maybe they kept it away from me. And then again,
there was a really funny moment where I mean, we don't have to include this in the podcast if I'm going
the names out
too
of it.
off topic, but it was like there was some thing with flutter tongue, like some high flutter tongue, high note with flutter tongue, and it wasn't specified who all had to play it, just that 10 trumpet players had to play
group,
it. Right.
Yeah.
So Neely said, raise your hand if you can play a flutter tongue on this A or whatever it is. And so,
I don't remember
like
that.
25 hands. I don't think you were there. It was at a rehearsal at Manhattan School. 20 hands went up. And so he just pointed to each person. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. And like, you lost half the people immediately. But I just remember Nadia Norhaus being like, I got it, and nailing it. And I was like, yes, get it.
Wow. Yeah, no, my specs were that I wouldn't have to play in it because I wanted to sit in the middle and hear.
It was amazing.
It was incredible.
It was amazing. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned Nadia. I've been taking lessons with her.
Oh, cool.
It's great.
That's amazing.
Ever since Lori Frank left, I've been teacherless. And so she's a really gifted teacher in that lineage of Carmine Caruso
Wow.
and Laurie, and she's teaching out of Laurie's old studio.
Wow,
so if anyone
amazing.
is listening and looking for a good trumpet teacher, that's my recommendation.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know Nadia super well. I mean, I've met her now and then, but I was in a yoga class like a year ago, and the teacher was playing this piece with piano, and then trumpet came in. And as soon as it started, I was like, I know this person, this trumpet player. This is somebody I know. And I had an idea of 2 or 3 people that it could be. And after the class, I found out it was Nadia. And I was like, there you go. It's so funny.
Interesting.
It's like someone's voice, that you've heard.
Wow. Yeah. Speaking of someone's voice that you've heard, you have a band with your husband now.
Yeah, we have a few bands.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You only sent me one, and I wasn't aware. But hearing he plays alto saxophone, so hearing the 2 saxophones together, it's really cool. It's really nice. What's the name of the band?
The band is Skelettes.
Uh-huh.
And that's, Nathaniel Morgan, Booker Stardrum on drums, and Jason Ajemian on bass.
And this is as yet unreleased,
It's unreleased, yeah.
but you're putting it out.
Gonna come out on Out of Your Head Records at some point.
Great.
Probably later this year.
Good.
And we had a really fun set at Winter Jazz Fest in January.
Mm-hmm.
It's a band that has had, we actually have a whole other piece that we wrote for the Winter Jazz Fest set. So we'll we have lots of material, but we don't have that many chances to play because
But the album is recorded.
yeah, we have one that's
so-
totally recorded. Yeah,
Great.
Just needs some more mixing and mastering and get it out there.
Awesome. So we'll go out listening to that. But, and this piece is called Disaster Reduction.
Yep. So this is a piece of mine. We often write pieces collaboratively, but this was the first. In our first iteration, we kind of all brought stuff that was more of our own composition. So this was my composition that was developed by the band.
Thank you so much for joining me. And
Thanks so
I
much for
love the
having
record.
me.
I'm so proud and happy that it's on Greenleaf
I'm
Music.
really happy too. It's awesome. It's
You
so
guys,
exciting.
It's an incredible band, and I will be there April 4th, 2020
Woohoo!
at the Jazz Gallery to hear it. And I look forward to the music growing and expanding and continuing to move forward.
Thanks.
Thank you. Hey, this is Dave. Thanks for listening. See you at greenleafmusic.com.